Hey y'all, hi. Have we got a video compilation for you today? So from time to time, we create these videos, which are just a bunch of past videos strung together, but we take out the intros and the outros so that you can watch them all in one fluid stream without it feeling repetitive and without it feeling like it's stopping and starting. Great for falling asleep at night, great for getting a bunch of busy work done, and really interesting to see how things evolve over the years when we source a bunch of videos that are kind of on the same topic and then stick them all together, which is what we've done today. So this video is a compilation of all of the videos that have documented the evolution of my sense of style from pretty extreme maximalism to something more minimalist. Now, you'll see me in these videos disambiguate between aesthetic minimalism, which is just the way that the clothes look, and lifestyle minimalism, which is like how many clothes you have, how much stuff you have. So you can be an aesthetic maximalist, but a lifestyle minimalist, like loud, splashy mixed print outfits, but you have a pretty edited wardrobe, right? I am mostly discussing a move towards aesthetic minimalism. So away from super multifaceted, loud outfits with splashier garments and towards something a bit more streamlined. But it gets complicated. It's not as simple as all that. At the beginning, though, it was pretty shocking. Like I did an experiment essentially to kick this off, basically forcing myself to live without my maximalist clothes for a month or two to see how it would feel. And it felt like such an extraordinary relief. It was so provocative that it started a journey that I have then continued to document on YouTube. And that is what you'll see unfolding throughout these many videos. I really hope that you enjoy this. I find it so interesting to look back. And also compilation videos like this allow us to have a more sane schedule, right? There is no vacation time built into a YouTuber's contract. There are no sick days. There's like no way to sort of have a natural ebb and flow of the intensity of the work. And we realized somewhere along the way that we had to build that in order to make this energetically sustainable. And this kind of video, these compilation videos, that is one of the ways that we have built it in. So thank you for being here and watching. It's really helpful to have people watching these compilations because it signals to YouTube that the channel's still alive, which it is. It's alive. And we'll be back very soon. This is a pretty short break, I think, the one that we're taking right now. But it's also been such a pleasure to put them together because it's a chance for me to reflect on really how dramatically my sensibility about fashion has changed in just a few short years. If you are quite curious about what it's like to run a YouTube channel and what it is like for Joe and me to be a married couple with a kid, doing this creative work, but self-employed, trying to fit all the pieces together, and also kind of trying to keep our heads above water in these troubled times. And just as people who have darkness in our souls, we're both like depressed artists and like creative people full of longing. Like we just are. Subscribe to me on Patreon because we record a podcast about all of that stuff once a week and post it once a week. So it's pretty regular content over there, a real look behind the veil, and you can subscribe for as little as $1 a month. So we'd love to have you. Check out my book. Speaking of me being a tortured artist, I have published a book of poetry that is a prize-winning book of poetry. It's in the description box as always. But without further ado, let's get into the meat of this compilation video. Today, I'm going to be showing you some pieces of clothing. She said she wanted to be in the intro, but then as soon as I started talking, she's like, no, put me down. I am going to be showing you a handful of pieces of clothing that I have purchased secondhand over the past couple of months. I am a huge fan of secondhand shopping. I would actually say the backbone of my wardrobe is clothing that I purchased secondhand. And I've gotten a lot of requests for videos about how to shop secondhand well, how to make good decisions when you're shopping secondhand. And I'm hoping that I can kind of get at some of those questions by showing you these pieces that I've purchased, kind of talking through the process of how I decided to buy them. So what I was thinking when I was shopping, where I found them in the store, and how I narrowed down my options and finally made the decision to actually go through with each purchase. These are all things that I bought in person. So I'm going to be talking about the experience of being physically in a secondhand shop and going through the options. If you like this and you'd like to see a similar video about strategies for shopping secondhand online, definitely let me know in the comment section down below and I'll get on that. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Sadie, she's not sure whether she wants to be in the video or not. All right, I gotta go pick up the clothes now. Technically, Sadie was a secondhand purchase as well. Somebody had left her at the shelter. The best thing I ever bought. Okay, so this is the first piece. And again, this is kind of a collective haul from the past several months, during which I've kind of been exploring the thrift shops and secondhand shops in this area because I just moved here about 6 months ago and I'm kind of curious what's on offer. This piece came from an actual thrift shop. So not a designer consignment shop, not high-end resale, but like the equivalent of a Salvation Army or a Goodwill. It's by the brand Lafayette 148, which I actually don't really know anything about. When I saw the tag, I think I recalled seeing them in Nordstrom's, but I didn't have that like designer recognition for this brand on the level that I usually do when I'm really excited about a find. It instantly caught my attention because it has several qualities that I know that I prize in clothing. And these are pieces of knowledge that I have in my intellectual brain. Like I've defined these qualities to myself. I've articulated them so that I know what I like in words and concepts, and I'm not just reactive when I'm shopping. Pretty much at the top of my list for qualities that I love in clothing is the word texture. I'm like this in makeup too. If you watch my beauty content, you'll know. I love texture, and I particularly love it when the rest of the garment is monochromatic so that the texture is on show. This is a really dark navy blue, which actually isn't quite in my wheelhouse. It's not one of the colors that I think of myself as wearing. Blue across the board, there just isn't much blue in my wardrobe. But the texture on this top is so dark blue as to look almost black. And I actually feel like it provides a little bit of variety for a wardrobe that does tend towards a lot of black clothing, as you'll see as we move through the haul. So that's what caused me to grab this and decide to try it on and consider making the purchase. Now, there is something really important, I think, about my initial discovery of this product in the store, which was that it was in the extra large section. The size tag has actually been cut out of the garment. I don't know what size Lafayette 148 thinks that this is or says that this is, but it was labeled extra large on the store's tag, and it was hanging in the extra large blouses. When I am thrift shopping, I look through everything. And this is partly because I like an oversized fit. So sometimes I'll find something that is a large or an extra large, even though I usually wear a medium, and I can make it work because it works for my style. But I actually think it's a piece of advice that can work for a lot of people, because in thrift shops, things aren't always super organized. Because I go through everything when I'm thrift shopping, because I go through every size of every category in which I'm interested, I'm here to tell you that there are tons of things that are filed in the wrong place in thrift shops. I'm always finding things that are sized one way mixed in with things that are sized another way. I would say that maybe even the majority of things that I've ended up buying at thrift shops have been things that are either labeled a size that I almost never wear, like extra small or extra large, or I've found them hanging with the sizes of things that I almost never wear, like extra small or extra large. And this is the perfect example of this, right? It was at the very, very end of the extra large row. When I saw it, I was like, texture. The texture is one of my things. It looks like it could work for me. I'm going to try it on. I tried it on. I absolutely loved the way that it looked and felt. And then came the final piece of the decision-making puzzle. I thought about how it was going to wear over time and how I was going to take care of it. So I checked the contents tag on this. I learned that it is 72% wool, which actually makes it kind of a special piece because it's semi-sheer, but it's really warm. And to have something that has that sort of semi-sheer sensuality, which I also know is something that's been on trend for the past several seasons, but to have it have enough wool content in it that I can wear it in the winter, that's a gem. So I was very excited to see that. The rest of it is silk, and the tag says dry clean only. I almost never dry clean things, and that's a huge strike against this. So I had a moment in the dressing room at a thrift shop where I was like, do I really want to buy this? And then I said to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get it because I really love it, and I'm going to take the risk of washing it by hand. I know that it's just wool and silk, and handled with care, those are both fibers that can be hand washed. I'll hand wash it with very gentle soap or with shampoo in cold cold water. I told myself there in the dressing room, I was like, it might not be the same after that, but that's a risk I'm willing to take, especially because I'm buying it secondhand. It's not super expensive, especially for a garment this beautiful. And I feel pretty confident that it is going to be okay washing it that way, just given my experience with wool and silk. That's what I'm going to try to do with it, knowing that it might be a tiny bit of a risk, but feeling comfortable with taking that risk because I want to have a long relationship with the clothes I buy. My plan is that I'll be wearing this for most of the rest of my life. Okay, this is the second thing that I have to show you, and this came from the same shop. Again, a true thrift shop, not designer consignment. I find that at thrift shops like that, I have to dig a little deeper, you know, look through a little bit more. There's not really the same sense of curation that you can sometimes find at designer consignment shops. But the gems, when I find them, are really exciting because the price point tends to be much lower. And this was one of those really exciting moments. This is a two-piece set. It is vintage. It is vintagey. Like you can feel it even just in the style of the fabric, and you can see it in the tags. They're like a little bit yellowed and worn, but it's by the brand St. John, which I know to be an extremely expensive designer brand that is sold at department stores like Nordstrom's. And I don't know too much about them, but my perception is that St. John makes things like sport knitwear suits for women who own yachts. A wealthy woman in Martha's Vineyard in the summer wearing like a knitted red blazer with gold buttons kind of thing. Coastal grandmother, actually, it's like a really specific niche kind of coastal grandmother vibes that I get from the brand St. John. Now, coastal grandmother is sometimes my vibe, but I'm kind of like the artsy hippie coastal grandmother, you know, like coastal grandmother who does ceramics, not necessarily like generational wealth coastal grandmother. Like if you think of Grace and Frankie, which I feel like is the paradigm for coastal grandmother, I'm definitely Frankie over here, and St. John is like Grace. St. John is like Grace's brand to a T. However, because I have a little bit of that brand recognition, I was interested in it because I thought, well, it's probably well made because it's vintage. The fact that it's St. John made me kind of perk up. I was like, well, even if it's several decades old, if it hasn't been worn very much, and I actually think it might not even have been worn at all. I feel like it might have been dead stock, or it might have just been sitting in the back of someone's closet because it has absolutely no signs of wear. I saw it and I thought, well, it has probably held up. And what it is something that is very chic right now, very popular right now. It's a two-piece knitwear set. Knitted pants and a knitted top. And actually, when I was going through the racks and I came across this, the first thing that I did was to check the fabric contents, because a knitted set like this, if it was all acrylic, which it kind of felt like to my hand, it doesn't feel spongy and soft in the way that wool usually does. If it was all acrylic, I wasn't even gonna try it on. I have no interest in an all acrylic knitted set. But to my surprise and delight, when I checked the contents, I learned that it's wool. It's a little bit stiff and scratchy feeling for wool, and I think that there just must be something about the way that the yarn was processed, like it was twisted extra tight or something. But I don't get super itchy in my clothes. I'm not super sensitive in that way. Even things that tend to feel itchy to people, like itchy wool. And I love wool clothing because I run very, very cold in the winter, and when I'm cold, wool is like the only thing that will warm me up enough. And when I tried it on, it was absolutely love at first sight. I have never really owned anything quite like this. Like I've always worked for myself from home. Again, I'm the Frankie and the Grace and Frankie. That super polished kind of upscale coastal grandmother vibe. It's really a step in the direction of professionalism and chicness for me. And I love being able to experiment in a little bit of an unusual direction for me, fashion-wise, with things that I get at thrift shops. I don't think there are care instructions on the tags for these pieces, but I'll definitely wash this set by hand in cold water again and lay it flat to dry. I have already worn this a couple of times since the weather started getting cold, and every time I wear it, I feel amazing. It might be my favorite thing everything that I've purchased at a thrift shop since I moved here. Okay, now we're getting into some consignment shop purchases. So as most of you probably already know, thrift shops usually contain donations. People drop off things that they don't want anymore, and then the workers of the thrift shop go through them if they're closed, decide which ones are in condition to resell, put them on the racks, and then people come through and buy them. At a consignment shop, people are usually reselling their clothes. So I've actually done it before, taken like a bag of clothes to a consignment shop, and then the people at the consignment shop will go through and tell me which of my pieces they think they can resell. And then they'll take my clothes, they'll hang them in the shop. People will come shopping, and when my clothes sell, the consignment shop will keep a percentage of what was paid by the person who bought my garment, and I'll receive the rest of it. So a consignment shop is like a shop full of things that a whole bunch of different people are trying to sell. And because it's that way, the things usually have higher value because they're things that people didn't want to keep anymore, but they felt maybe they had spent too much on or invested too much in to just donate to something like a thrift shop. And the selection is usually curated because the people who run the consignment shop have only accepted things for consignment that they think are alluring enough or nice enough and in good enough condition to resell. I love consignment shopping. It's probably my favorite kind of secondhand shopping. And if you've never done it before, I really recommend just Googling consignment shop or designer consignment shop, either in your town or the next time you visit like a big city or a bigger town, just to see, because there are way more amazing consignment shops out there than I feel like anybody really knows. They tend to be independent. They tend to be run by really cool people. And for me, I don't know, it's kind of a fun way to interact with sort of the fashion zeitgeist of whichever part of the world you're visiting or living in. I loved going through the clothes at the designer consignment shop where I bought these next couple of pieces because I kind of felt like I was getting to know the women who are reselling their clothes in this area where I now live. And some of those women definitely have the kind of artsy coastal grandmother vibe. Like I feel like there are a handful of artsy coastal grandmothers, like a handful of Frankies, who are consigning their clothes at this designer consignment shop. And I bought 3 pieces from those women or from that woman. This is one of them. So these pants are by a brand called Sula that I didn't know about before. It's a really small brand, independent brand. It's just one amazing designer, one woman. I've since looked her up and followed her on Instagram and kind of checked out the brand a little bit, and it's really cool. I will link the brands of all of this stuff, of course, in case you want to check them out. But I didn't have that brand recognition when I was going through the clothes at the designer consignment shop. However, I decided to try on these pants because I was kind of particularly looking for comfortable pants. And I was honestly kind of looking for basic black comfortable pants. So I tried on kind of a disproportionate number of pairs of comfortable pants at this thrift shop. This was one of them. And as soon as I got them on, I was like, yes. A lot of what we've already discussed applies. So they're labeled as a size small. I never wear a small in pants. I'm going to say this again. I never wear a small in pants. And if I had the usual kind of conservative sizing mindset or shopping mindset that I have when I'm shopping at a retail store where everything is new, going through and I'm like, oh, they don't have my size in these pants. They're definitely not going to fit. It's absolutely no use trying a small or trying a 4 because I know my body and they're not going to fit, right? If I had that mindset when I was in the consignment shop, I would not have tried on these, my new favorite pair of pants. They are a small. It's right here on the tag, but I always broaden my mind when I'm consignment shopping or when I'm thrift shopping. It's like partly the experience, you know. I was talking to my cousin recently. She's a Gen Z queen, and she was like, I like to go to the thrift shop and just put in my ear pods. Is that what they're called? AirPods? Headphones. She's like, I like to go just put in my headphones and just like get in the zone and like zone out to my music while I'm going through. And that I was not listening to my headphones. So I was in the consignment shop, but I was kind of in that zone. I was like, I'm here. I'm just browsing. I'm just going to try on everything that looks like it could remotely possibly work. I'm not going to close any doors, right? Well, this is another success story that's based on that principle, because I think that these pants are designed to sit really low on the waist and be really drop crotched, which is a style that I like. And I could kind of tell when I looked at them that they had that slightly hippie-ish artistic silhouette because there's a little bit of tucking on the darts on the insides of the legs that gives them this cool silhouette. But when I put them on, I saw that because the crotch is so low, that kind of acts as like a super high waist on me. So I think that they fit me not quite exactly how they're supposed to fit, but they're absolutely perfect. They also have this cool feature. They have a drawstring waist. It's not elastic, so it doesn't squeeze the stomach. You can kind of choose how loose or how tight you want them to be. And because I was looking for comfortable pants, that really appealed to me. Because it was a consignment shop, these were a little bit more expensive. It wasn't like a thrift shop where everything's $5, $10, $15, right? Since I've looked up the brand, I've learned that Sula pants tend to retail for like hundreds of dollars. So given that that's the case, they cost at the consignment shop a fraction of what they cost new, but it still wasn't a decision that I could take as lightly as I was taking when I was shopping at the actual thrift shop. So I had a little talk with myself in the dressing room about longevity and care because I didn't want to buy these unless I was absolutely sure that I could wash, wear over and over again, and that they could hold up, be workhorses, be easy to care for. That's what I was looking for in these. So these pants are made from woven cotton, which was what I suspected based on how they feel. And the care tag says that they can be washed in cold water and that I should hang dry them or lay them flat to dry rather than putting them in the dryer, which is what I would have done anyway. I feel confident that they're going to hold up really well over time. I plan to wear them a lot. In fact, I've already worn them a lot. I've worn them like a couple times a week since I bought them. To me, they strike a really great balance. They're a bit polished and put together, like a step up from something like sweatpants or just lounge pants, but they have kind of a cheeky silhouette, a bit of a casual quality, again, kind of a bit of an artistic quality, and they have a fabric that makes me feel like I can really live in them. I can cook in them. I can wipe my hands on them. That to me is like the magic combination of things that makes me feel willing to spend a little bit more on something when I'm buying it secondhand. On that same trip to that same consignment shop, I bought this. Now, this is a little bit of a boring purchase, so I'll try to make it quick. And I'll also say that because it's a little bit of a boring purchase, I hemmed and hawed about it a little bit in the shop. It is a straight up V-neck cashmere sweater from Saks Fifth Avenue Cashmere. So it's like the in-house Saks brand. It's a size medium, which is a size that I would normally take in something like this. I tried it on the store and it fit exactly how I would want it to fit. I love the way it looks. I love the way it feels. It's really warm and soft and cozy. Because it was being sold secondhand, it was an amazing price for a cashmere sweater. And I was like, Hannah, are you really gonna come here and just buy a black V-neck wool sweater? And the reason that I ultimately answered yes to myself is that, again, I know myself, I get really cold in the winter. When I'm that cold, wool is the only thing that can really keep me warm. And most of my wool sweaters are just a little more statement. They just are the main piece. You know what I mean? Like the attention grabbing piece around which any outfit revolves. To have one that's a really great sort of slightly cropped length that goes really well with all my high-waisted pants. To have it in black in a V-neck, which is my preferred neckline. It's incredibly practical for me, not just because it will keep me warm. So not just because of the practicality of like a garment that serves the major purpose of clothes, which is to like protect your body, but also stylistically, it kind of belongs in the bedrock of the wardrobe, and there wasn't really anything like this already in that bedrock of my wardrobe. So I just knew that it was a smart buy for me. But the thing that really sold me on this is the fact that the cashmere is thick. It's not that really thin, lightweight cashmere that we usually see in cashmere sweaters, especially in like house brands. If it had been that really drapey, thin cashmere and everything else about it had been the same, I wouldn't have bought it. But it just feels like it's going to be super sturdy. I can tell just by the slight fuzziness of this that it has been worn a couple of times. It's not like absolutely pristine new with tags, you know? But it doesn't have any pills. It doesn't have any wear around the seams. The tag's a little crumpled, which tells me that it may have actually been like worn and dry cleaned. And I can just tell that it's sturdily enough made to retain its impeccability even through use. And that's something that I value highly, especially in like a basic like this. I am, again, planning to wash it by hand. I wouldn't put it in the washing machine. I know that people have had success with washing cashmere in the washing machine in those washing bags, but I don't mind washing my wool things by hand, and that's what I'll do with this. I'll soak it in cold water in the sink with a little bit of shampoo. I'll gently squeeze the water out, and then I'll lay it flat to dry. That is what I have done with cashmere and wool in the past, and that's what I'll do with this. Okay, this is kind of a funny one, also from a consignment shop. These pants were also hanging in the extra large section. And even though you would think that of all things that I definitely wouldn't be able to wear if they were massively too big, it would be pants, I still always go all the way through to the end of the row when I'm looking at pants at consignment shops or thrift shops. And stylistically, these sort of drapey, flowy pants with seaming in them to make them kind of hang in an interesting way, that's the kind of thing that I absolutely love. So I took them in the dressing room, I tried them on. They do fit a little bit loosely, but I like that. Again, I was specifically looking for comfortable pants and they're not falling off of me, you know what I mean? Like they're totally wearable. The one possible drawback of these for me was the fabric. So I tried them on, I fell in love with them. I was like, I really want these. The fabric is very obviously synthetic, and I almost never buy a synthetic fabric like this. Yeah, the fabric is just a nylon and elastane blend. It's not my first choice because I don't find it to be just the coziest, but I do know that technical fabrics like this tend to be really sturdy, which is something that I value. These were new with tags, and there was like a little bit of information on the tag about the fabric saying that it's designed to be sturdy basically as active wear. So even though they're these drapey, flowy pants, it's like you can wear them in the rain, you can wear them in the water. They're supposed to like block UV rays and protect you from the sun. It's like you can go hiking in them. You know, on the tag, they were being billed as these like really sturdy sort of all-purpose but dancerly comfy pants. And again, it was a brand I'd never heard of. The brand is called Alembica, and these pants are particularly called Techbica, and I think that they're supposed to be the like technical fabric arm of the Alembica brand. And of course, you know, they can be washed and worn, washed and worn. They're designed for that, and I have no concern about their longevity. Overall, my mission to find comfortable pants at the consignment shop was really successful. I couldn't believe that I had found 2 pairs of comfortable, sort of flowy, comfortable pants with dramatic silhouettes. Okay, this is the last piece. This is also from the consignment shop. You'll be happy to see that it's not black. It's sort of this chocolate burgundy color. And this is the thing that I was the least sure about. It is a pure wool tunic sweater. It isn't felted, but it has like a little bit of a felted feeling. It's just that kind of wool. It has these sculptural details all around the hem, which look very organic, sort of insectoid or chrysalis-like. I really love that. As I said before, I love texture and I love clothes that have a sculptural quality. I actually feel like there are a number of pieces in this haul that have a sculptural quality of one kind or another. This, curiously, is labeled as a size small, but it was hanging in the extra larges. As you'll see when I put it on, the arms are really, really long. It caught my eye because, again, it has this sculptural quality that I'm interested in. This chocolate burgundy is a color that I really love and that I've been wanting to incorporate more of into my wardrobe. And when I saw the brand, my antenna perked up even more because I did recognize the brand on this piece. So the brand is called Runholz, and it is, I believe, an independent brand in Germany. And I know about it because I have in the past owned a pair of Runholz pants that I also got at a consignment shop, but back when I lived in Los Angeles. And those pants, they're actually really similar to the black pants that I just showed you, the kind of drapey ones, but they were made out of a cotton jersey knit, and they were a little bit less dramatic in silhouette than those, and I wore those pants literally to pieces. And I saw this and I saw that it was Runholz. I was like, oh, that brand kind of has my number. And I also knew that based on the little research that I had done back when I purchased those pants in the designer consignment shop in LA, that it's not a super well-known brand in the United States because it's a German brand and I don't know how much they sell here, but it's very high-end. I mean, like really niche, really well-made things, really coveted by people who like this style. So I went back and forth about this one a little bit. I felt initially like it might be a little bit too too like wood sprite, too creature of the forest kind of for me, like a little too on the nose with hippie coastal grandmother. But ultimately, I just wanted to wear it. I just loved having it on. I love the long sleeves. And it too has that wonderful combination of being something that's cozy enough and warm enough because it's wool that I will just be like wearing it in the house just for warmth. I'll just throw it on. I'll wear it again to cook, to work, to edit, to write, but it's fashion. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not sweatpants. It's not a sweatsuit. I'll be wearing it casually, but it will give me a little something. And I have been wanting to infuse my wardrobe with pieces like that. So decided to get it. I also, I'll wash it by hand like I do with my wool. And I feel confident that if it doesn't work out, I'll be able to resell it. Knowing the brand and knowing that the brand is coveted and that the brand is something that tends to show up on the resale market made me feel confident that I would be able to resell it if I decided I didn't love it. But now that I have it home, I do love it. So that is it. That's my secondhand clothing haul, basically showing you everything that I've bought secondhand since I moved here. So takeaway number one is to cast a wide net when you are shopping in a thrift shop or at a consignment shop. And I didn't say this, but I also go through the section labeled men's clothing as well, especially when I'm at like a big Goodwill or something, especially the sweaters, but also blazers, pants. And again, this is partly because sometimes a men's sweater or a men's blazer will fit me really well and work for me. It's also because things tend to get mixed up and I'll find things that were designed to be women's wear mixed in with the men's wear pretty much every time I go through it. Takeaway number two, I would say, is to kind of know what you love rather than just sort of casting aimlessly around and thinking to yourself, will this work? Will this work for me? Maybe I like this now. Maybe I'm the kind of person who wears this. I have in my mind, chocolate burgundy is a color that I'm trying to incorporate into my wardrobe more. Texture is one of my favorite qualities in a piece of clothing. Comfortable pants that aren't sweatpants or aren't clearly loungewear is something that I feel like I have a need for. When I'm cold in the winter, wool is the only thing that keeps me warm, right? I mentioned all of these things in passing as I was going through. It's like I have a little list in my head of like basic principles around which I'm trying to build a wardrobe. Because I make videos about this kind of thing, because I talk and think a lot about aesthetics, I'm very familiar with those. But you may not be. And this could be the moment for you to sit down and make a little list and kind of clarify those principles of your own desires for clothing for yourself before you head out to the thrift shops and the consignment shops next time. And then lastly, a big thing for me, as you could tell when I was going through, is having a plan for caring for the garment. I talked a lot about whether the thing is something I can wash myself and how I'm planning to wash it. But I think another thing is imagining what the thing is going to be like after you wash it. Because just like the mall is, consignment shops and thrift shops are full of garments that just aren't going to wash very well. All acrylic sweaters tend to get really pilly and really grungy when you wash them. Sometimes super thin fabrics don't wash very well. Cheaply made things, you do come across things that were made in fast fashion shops, in thrift shops especially. And sometimes you find something that fits that description that is really sturdily made or happens to be made with a fabric that you think will wash and wear pretty well. But a lot of times a garment only looks good before it's been washed, or like after it's been washed only once. And then once it's been washed 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, it's just never the same. So I always think about what something's going to look like after it's been washed 10 times before I buy it, whether I'm buying it new or buying it secondhand. Those are all the takeaways that I can think of off the top of my head. But if I said anything else as I was going through that felt like a takeaway to you and I didn't include it in the recap here at the end, please share it with us in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As so many of us are, I'm interested in minimalism as a lifestyle principle. I feel overstimulated a lot of the time. I get decision fatigue, and the idea of having everything be sleek, chic, and calm is attractive on so many levels. But I am also powerfully drawn to the lushness and colorful chaos of aesthetic maximalism. It's hard to imagine fully rejecting maximalism, and I don't think I'm alone here. I think that the push and pull between minimalism and maximalism is playing out across many people's lives here in the 21st century. I think a lot about this, and last month I decided to conduct an experiment on myself as a way of exploring these concepts further. Nothing in my life illustrates the battle between aesthetic minimalism and aesthetic maximalism more than my closet. And as a result, I find myself engaged in a version of that battle every day when I'm deciding what to wear. So I decided to commit to a totally minimalist closet for an entire month and see how it made me feel. In this video, I'm going to give you a recap of the process, show you some of the outfits that I wore, and share with you the benefits, drawbacks, and takeaways of this experiment, which, spoiler alert, completely shocked me and might have actually changed my life forever. Let's get right into the meat of the video. So I kicked off the experiment by actually physically editing my closet down. I removed everything from my closet that didn't fit the brief. And I really wanted to edit my closet down to something that aligned with the aesthetic minimalism style movement. To my mind, it has to do with a restrained color palette and an almost complete excising of print. So kind of like turning down the dial on color and pattern in order to turn up the dial on and increase the dramatic impact of silhouette. That was the idea that I had. That was the general impression that I had of what I was after, but I wanted to be really specific about the parameters of what was allowed in my closet during the month. So I started by studying the minimalist fashion bloggers Brittany Bathgate and Emma Hill. I studied their Instagram feeds and their YouTube channels, and I took some notes, and based on what I saw, I made these clear rules for switching over my closet. This is my list of what was allowed to stay in the closet. Neutrals, monochromatics, and solids, very subtle prints, and denim. And the initial list of things that weren't allowed to stay in the closet was this: loud and fun prints, brights, like bright colors, non-neutral colors, sporty details, and logos of any kind. Now, there are a few distinctions, a few differences between what these two bloggers specifically tend to wear and what I chose to keep. So Emma and Brittany both wear stripes, and I don't really wear stripes. Emma and Brittany also have bright blue as an accent color in their wardrobes, and Emma wears quite a bit of olive green as one of her neutrals. And I don't own anything bright blue, and I actually don't even really own much olive green either. I just don't gravitate to those cool-toned colors. So I chose my own restrained minimalist color palette based on what I do gravitate to. Instead of stripes, I kept a few chic, minimal, neutral prints. Instead of bright blue as an accent color, I kept bright cherry red. And instead of navy blue and olive green as part of the neutrals palette, I kept rust, rose, and burgundy. But I was pretty strict, so I kept rust and rose and burgundy specifically, but I took out coral. I made a distinction between rust and coral, and I took out coral. I also took out anything that I actually thought could be called orange rather than rust. If it was a non-neutral orange, it wasn't allowed. It had to be like a rust tone that can really be called a neutral. I took out pink, even though soft neutral rose was allowed to stay. I even took out pieces that I would call soft red or pinkish red. I kept that warm color palette really restricted to like brownish rose, burgundy, and then again, the bright pops of cherry red. I essentially took out everything blue, although a couple of pairs of blue jeans were allowed to stay. And I also took the opportunity to take out a bunch of things that I'm sort of considering decluttering. I just thought, why not take the opportunity to live without those things for a month and see how I feel? So it took some work to kick off the project. It was like a whole closet changeover, and the result was a glorious, aesthetic, edited closet. And I cannot even begin to tell you how pleased I was with this result. Whatever I thought it was going to be like, I totally underestimated how great this would feel. Now, I think it's important to note here that I'm in my 30s. I've been collecting clothes and curating my wardrobe for decades. I have a lot of high quality pieces, some of which I've invested in, but most of which I thrifted or bought secondhand. For many years now, I've been meticulous about what I buy and what I bring into my life. I've tried to just acquire high quality things that I really love. So the minimalist wardrobe that was lurking inside of my larger wardrobe, it's kind of a banger. And that's partly circumstantial, right? That's partly because of how I've been buying things, how old I am, the kind of energy I've put into my closet. It might not be like that for everyone. But wow, I was stunned by what was left behind after I had taken out all of the maximalist things and put them away, and I could not wait to start dressing from this closet. Here are some of the outfits that I wore, and here are some of my thoughts on these outfits and my experience wearing them. Even though many of the outfits are very much on the low-key side, I was surprised by how often I ended up in something that one would probably consider a statement outfit. A little bit of cherry red goes a long way, I'd say. As you can probably see, I ended up wearing the same pieces over and over again in different ways. Or I would say I ended up doing that even more than usual, because that's something that I aspire to do generally, but I had to embrace that on a whole other level to make this wardrobe work for me. Many of these outfits, if not most of these outfits, are outfits that I've never worn before. So these are items of clothing that I've owned for a long time and that I've worn before, but worn in a way that I had never considered before this month. I also ended up wearing color combinations that I had never considered. The standout example is black and red. I just wasn't in the habit of pairing black and red, and partway through the month I started doing it kind of out of necessity. It was like my wardrobe led me to it, and I ended up actually getting comfortable with it. It grew on me, and I'm continuing now to do it. At the beginning, it was kind of like dressing from someone else's closet. But as the month wore on, I completely forgot that it had ever been any other way. So what were the benefits and what were the drawbacks of living with this edited version of my closet? Let's start with the benefits. Benefit number one, just the way that the closet looked and felt in its edited state. It felt like everything had room to breathe. I could see everything. I just felt this calm and aligned energy coming from that part of the bedroom instead of a chaotic energy. I loved my minimalist closet for its own sake as a presence in my life. And that is enough of a benefit to me to be considered its own benefit. Benefit number one. Benefit number two of the minimalist closet, it was easier to decide what to wear. Now, this was, I think, partly because the closet was more curated, so there were fewer overall choices, but it was also because the overall goal was to dress like a minimalist. So I felt less pressure than I usually feel to create a kind of moment with my outfit. Like if I wore a black t-shirt with black slacks and black sandals, I didn't feel like I was letting myself down or missing out on the chance to wear some of my more maximalist things. I just felt like I was succeeding at the brief on those days. And this was a real eye-opener for me because I hadn't actually realized how much pressure I was putting on myself to engage with my clothes in a dynamic way. I didn't see that pressure for what it was until it was gone. Benefit number three of the edited minimalist closet, I felt chic and put together every single day, everywhere I went, and even when I didn't go anywhere and just stayed home. Obviously, my vibe was more understated this month, but as I said before, because I'm pretty picky about the clothes that I own, the wardrobe that was left behind after the edit was a wardrobe of pretty high quality garments. So I was more understated, but not less polished. In fact, I felt more polished more of the time. I just felt great in my closet and in my clothes. And lastly, benefit number 4 of the experiment, an unexpected benefit. I didn't plan this, but it ended up being kind of a no-buy for maximalist things too. In general, as a clothes shopper, I have a group of things that I don't consider buying because I don't wear them. I think everyone has this. For me, it's like I don't buy teal because I don't wear teal, or really any shades of blue. I don't really buy neons, etc., etc. You know, there's like a short list of things that just aren't me. And I never stress out about whether or not I should buy a thing that has those qualities because it's on that no list. Well, this past month, that list was just way, way longer. It's like I don't consider buying prints. I don't consider buying bright colors. I don't consider buying anything that's not strictly minimalist. I was so in the headspace that it just didn't cross my mind to consider making any purchases of anything that fell outside my narrow parameters. Okay, let's talk about the drawbacks of my super streamlined edited closet. Drawback number 1, I had to do laundry a little more frequently than I usually do. And I think that this was in large part because I actually went so far as to edit my underwear and pajamas. I went like full minimalist. Most of my underwear made the cut because I have pretty minimal taste in underwear as a rule already, but not loungewear, not pajamas. And I kept getting to the bottom of my very edited pajama drawer and then having to do laundry again so that I would have some sleepwear and loungewear. That was probably the most inconvenient thing about the month. Drawback number 2, I found myself wearing all black a lot. There were just so many days when the most practical way for me to wear clean clothes and feel put together and be warm enough or cool enough, be comfortable, the only really way to get dressed was for me to end up in an all black outfit. I love wearing an all black outfit once in a while, maybe once or even twice a week, but it was more than that and it was just too much for me. Basically, what was left behind when I edited out all the maximalist pieces was a wardrobe that, in order to interact with it in a robust way, required me to wear all black or led me to wear all black most of the time. And I think that if I were reverse engineering, if I were building that minimalist wardrobe from the ground up, that wouldn't have been my choice. Drawback number 3, it got really repetitive with the handbags. I only had 2 bags that made the cut, and only one of them was big enough to be a day bag. So I was carrying the same bag a whole lot. And this might not have felt like as much of an issue just in normal life, but for me, because of taking outfit pictures for Instagram, I would have loved to have had one more bag to switch it up. Okay, the $1 million question. Did I miss my maximalist garments? Did I feel like I couldn't express myself? So when it comes to self-expression, during this month, I felt like some of my outfits were really expressive and evocative, actually. There were a lot of repeated outfits and a lot of all black outfits, but when I wanted to splash out, I had plenty of range to do that. I definitely did not feel unable to express myself. Did I miss my maximalist garments? I missed individual things, but I missed them for practical reasons, actually. So I specifically remember missing my Disneyland sweatshirt because it's so cozy and I like to throw it on in the evenings, you know? But, and this is the crux of the video, prepare yourself, I didn't actually miss the maximalist quality of the garments that I had put away. And this shocked me. I am shocked by how little I missed my maximalist clothing. Even the pieces of clothing that I've worn over and over and over again over the years and grown really fond of, like that quilt print frilled puff sleeve Doen blouse, for example. Sometimes I would sit down and try to remember what it was I had squirreled away. I would usually be able to remember a couple of pieces like that frilly quilt print blouse, but I would remember them and then I just would not feel any desire to pull them out and wear them. I just didn't want their chaotic energy to come back to the closet. And it could be that I'm just going through a phase, right? Tastes fluctuate, and I don't think that a month is long enough to really be sure of what I want for myself long term and to really decide, for example, if I'm going to make a drastic purge of my closet or a dramatic change in how I dress. But it's been more than a month now, and am I ready to bring back all of the colors and prints and add them back into my closet? No, not a chance. There's no way I'm giving up my dreamy minimalist closet, which brings me to the final question. What's next? So at the end of the month, I went through all of the exiled things and I brought a few pieces back. Primarily, some of my printed pajamas and some pieces of loungewear are back. On a practical level, I just need more pajamas in rotation than I had in rotation during the month. I brought back my beloved Disneyland sweatshirt and a few other choice pieces that I felt didn't disrupt the vibe too much. For example, I brought back animal print, but I didn't bring back multicolored floral print. I also brought back some pieces of sporty loungewear, although I was selective about which pieces. And in a similarly selective way, I brought back some more color. So I allowed a couple of pieces of bubblegum pink knitwear back in, and I also expanded my warm neutrals color palette to include more shades of rust and true orange. Also during this time, the seasons have changed. I've already brought out some of my sweaters from storage, and what I'm doing is I'm just bringing out the minimalist ones, the ones that fit the vibe of my current closet. And everything else, it's packed into big Tupperwares and it's in the corner in the basement. Essentially, I'm continuing the experiment. And I honestly do not know what is going to happen long term. I don't know if I'm becoming a bona fide aesthetic minimalist or if my spirit was just getting overwhelmed and I felt like I needed a break from the business of prints. Only time will tell. All that I can report at this moment is that 1 month of a minimalist closet saved me time, made me feel calmer and more put together, and curtailed my desire to buy new stuff. This experiment has made me think a lot about the difference between aesthetic minimalism and a full-on minimalist lifestyle. As far as I understand it, becoming a minimalist, so adopting an actual minimalist lifestyle, is just about figuring out what's essential to you and getting rid of everything that's not. And you can do that without caring about aesthetics. For example, you can become a minimalist and decide that you only need one quilt. And even if your one quilt that you keep is riotously colorful and covered in prints, if it's aesthetically maximal, you'll still be pursuing lifestyle minimalism, just in your own aesthetic way. And even if the quilt that you keep is ugly, even if you're not sensitive to aesthetics and you just keep the most practical quilt, if you're just keeping what's essential to you and getting rid of the rest, you're pursuing minimalism. Aesthetic minimalism, on the other hand, is about the physical qualities of stuff. An object itself, or a piece of clothing itself, is considered minimalist because it has a simplified design. But you can be an aesthetic minimalist without having a minimalist lifestyle. For example, if you buy way more clothes than you need and you keep buying clothes, then you aren't practicing minimalism, no matter how neutral and simple the designs of those clothes are. In my case, this month, even though aesthetic minimalism was my guiding principle, I was kind of engaged in both. The parameters of my temporary closet purge were aesthetic, but the result of following those parameters was that I cut my closet in half, and I definitely ended up living with less this month, and as I've said, wearing a lot of the same clothes over and over. So for me, the pursuit of aesthetic minimalism actually ended up being a vehicle for living with less. And I actually think I benefited from both kinds of simplicity this month, benefited from both of them so much that I'm continuing the experiment. So a few months ago, 4 months ago, I posted a video called I Tried a Strict Minimalist Wardrobe for 1 month. I was mostly talking about an aesthetically minimal wardrobe. I weeded everything out of my wardrobe that didn't fit like a narrow definition of a minimal garment or a garment that could contribute to an aesthetically minimalist fashion look. But because of the number of things that I weeded out of my closet in order for it to fit those parameters, I ended up also experiencing experiencing, for me, a pretty hefty level of lifestyle minimalism as well with my wardrobe that month, meaning that I had fewer garments from which to choose. I was wearing a lot more of my clothes on rotation and repeating more outfits. At the end of that experimental month, spoiler alert in case you haven't seen that video, and I'll link it down below so that you can go watch it if you'd like to watch that before you watch this, which is an update on that video. At the end of the month, I was disinclined to bring back most of my more maximal or more splashy garments. I felt really happy both with my aesthetically minimal wardrobe and with my more streamlined wardrobe. I felt happier with fewer choices. So the outcome of that month, the conclusion of that video, was that I brought back a few things that I had missed, diversified my wardrobe a little bit compared to what it had been during the month, but ultimately I continued the experiment, and now 4 months later I'm reporting back about how it's going. If this is your first time to my channel, then I actually recommend watching the other video first. Again, I'll link it down below and I'll link it in the cards. I'll also tell you my name is Hannah, and this channel is actually mostly a beauty channel. Reviewing makeup is my bread and butter. And I'm also just interested in aesthetics on a philosophic level. I also love fashion, style. I make some lifestyle content. I'm interested in minimalism. I personally prefer fewer, nicer things rather than too many choices. So my content does kind of like dip into this ideas space once in a while. If you enjoyed this video, and especially if you think you'd enjoy watching a variety of different kinds of content from me, I hope you'll subscribe. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So as part of the conclusion of my first video about the minimal wardrobe experiment, I clarified the difference between lifestyle minimalism and aesthetic minimalism. I referenced it a little bit in the intro to this video, but I will re-explain again or re-clarify just so it's fresh in all of our minds. Lifestyle minimalism, or adopting a minimalist lifestyle, it's just a matter of figuring out what really matters to you, what you really value, and getting rid of everything else. It doesn't really have anything to do with aesthetics, and there are plenty of people who consider themselves minimalists, but they don't really care about the shape or genesis of their furniture or the physical quality of like the napkins on their dinner table. They don't necessarily feel more drawn to things that are considered aesthetically minimal than other things. In fact, some people are lifestyle minimalists, but aesthetically drawn to more maximalist things like print, bright colors, not the kinds of homewares and clothing that we think of when we think of minimalism. It doesn't matter what your stuff looks like, as long as you've whittled it down to what's essential to you, it's what people consider minimalism when it comes to the way you're living your life. Aesthetic minimalism has to do with the qualities of objects themselves, and it has to do with simplified design. So a piece of clothing is considered minimal if it downplays color and print in order for other qualities like silhouette and texture to be in the spotlight. And the same is true of other things than clothing. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's no drama in the piece, whatever it is, piece of clothing or furniture. It's just that the drama tends to be about shape and materials rather than color and print. And just like you can be a lifestyle minimalist without having aesthetically minimal tastes, you can be an aesthetic minimalist without living a minimalist lifestyle. If you mostly like physical objects and clothing that fit the definition of aesthetic minimalism, but you prefer to have a whole bunch of stuff and you've filled your house with that stuff. As I said in the intro, my initial project here was one of aesthetic minimalism. I was just curious to know what it would be like to only have aesthetically minimalist choices for a month with my wardrobe. But I'm also really interested in lifestyle minimalism. I definitely experienced the benefits of both for that extreme month where I had whittled down my closet, and I definitely wanted to retain both, or some version of both going forward. It wasn't just the aesthetics that felt like a good fit for me. So in this video, I'm going to address both how it's gone for me since that month-long experiment in terms of the volume of what's in my closet. So that'll be sort of the lifestyle minimalism portion, and how it has gone since that initial month in terms of style. And that'll be like the aesthetic minimalism portion. I'm going to start with the first one. In terms of volume, How is it going? The volume of my closet, the number of clothes that I have hanging in my closet. So for that experimental month, I whittled everything down. I lived with that whittled down wardrobe for a month. And at the end of the month, the numbers swelled slightly as I invited some things back into my wardrobe that had been banished for maximalism during the month. And it didn't take very long for me to feel like the ranks had swelled a little bit too much. Like I kind of missed how very spare my closet was during that month for me. I mean, I know that it's all relative, but for me, it had felt like a lovely, refreshing edit. And though I was happy to have back some of my comfort pieces, and I was happy to invite back some color, like bubblegum pink, for example, I loved having fewer things during that month, and I kind of missed having as few things as I had once I got going again. So I've been doing this thing where once in a while I go through and I temporarily banish all the clothes that I just don't feel like wearing right now. I've done it twice since filming that video. I've just kind of gone through and been like, not feeling it, not feeling it, not feeling it, like pulling things, whittling down my closet, just kind of on instinct. I find that some things go for practical reasons, they're not really seasonal, and some things I just am like, ugh, I'm not feeling you right now. I'm not getting rid of these things, I'm not selling them or donating them, I'm just putting them in storage for a little while where I still have easy access to them, but they're just kind of like out of sight and not part of the wardrobe with which I'm engaging like for that month or for those couple of months. And it's been great. So first of all, it's given me fewer choices on a daily basis, which is one of the things that I realize that I crave and feel satisfied by. But also when I switched them over, so I lived with the slightly swollen edited wardrobe for a little while. Then I went through one day and I did this, put the stuff away. And a month or two later, I came back and I got the banished stuff out of banishment and I kind of switched it out. So I put some of it back in the closet and I went through and did another cull and I banished some new things. When I was doing that switchover, I came across some things that I'd banished that I realized I did want to declutter, that I was just ready to let go. Their time out of sight, out of mind had allowed me to kind of detach and get clarity, and those declutter decisions were really easy. It hasn't been a very organized strategy. I've just done it on instinct. I've done it when I feel like I need a change. I think there's something to be said for that because overspending, going on a spending spree, just falling down the rabbit hole of late night scrolling, feeling like you need something new, like you have nothing to wear. A lot of times, at least for me, that comes from just wanting a change, like wanting to shake things up a little bit, wanting to feel a little bit of a refreshed version of myself or my life or my closet. I've been able to achieve that just by putting some things away randomly and then getting them back out again. And when things come out, it's like, oh, I'm happy to see you. It's like everything banished is new again, you know? It's worked out really well as a way of retaining that edited closet, that sense of fewer, nicer things, without having to go through the major stress of a huge declutter where I make the executive decision to part with a whole bunch of clothes. It's also been an enjoyable process every time, and I'll probably continue to do it for the foreseeable future. Another thing I've noticed is that I like, as I've said, having less stuff. And no matter how much I whittle down my wardrobe during a declutter or during one of these banishment culls, there are still always garments left hanging there in my wardrobe that don't get worn or that rarely get worn. To me, it's important not to put pressure on myself about that. I am trying not to feel like there's something wrong with having some pieces that don't get culled and don't get decluttered and also don't really get worn. I'm not obsessed with stringently whittling and decluttering all the way down to a tight capsule where everything is in heavy rotation. And I do subscribe to the part of Marie Kondo's philosophy that says that it makes sense to keep something if it sparks joy, even if it doesn't necessarily get a lot of use. Things can spark joy for reasons other than use value. And that is the case with a lot of my slightly more formal pieces of clothing. I really love them. They make me happy every time I see them, but I might go through an entire year just wearing that one really beautiful silk blouse like only once. That's okay with me. The more interesting thing about this, the thing of which I've taken note, is that there's seemingly no limit to the feeling of being happier with less. It's like I haven't yet reached a point where my desire to edit my closet or my act of editing my closet cancels out the sense of abundance. And in a sense, having those things there that are beautiful but that aren't getting worn all the time contributes to that sense of abundance. And having those things there makes it easier to resist the urge to buy more. Knowing that even with an edited version of my closet, there are still things hanging there that spark joy, but that don't get much use, it makes me feel full and less prone to launch on endless searches for more clothes. Ideally, I think over time, as I banish and unbanish things and do some actual declutters, ideally I would say whittle it down a little bit more. But I'm happy for that process, that whittling process, to happen slowly over time. It doesn't have to happen all at once. So let's move on to talking about aesthetic minimalism. How have I been feeling about my closet in terms of style over the last 4 months? I've got to say, I still feel very aligned with my personal version of aesthetic minimalism that emerged from that initial experiment. And again, it really does have to do with minimizing color variety in a piece of clothing and in an outfit, and minimizing print in order for other dramatic elements to have the spotlight. Elements like silhouette and texture. And in some cases, color, but it just tends to be one color or at most 2 colors at a time. I still don't miss my busy prints. I don't know what to tell you. I just don't miss them. I have added a little bit more color variety, notably a bright blue sweater that feels like a power color to me because it's so opposite of everything else in my wardrobe color-wise. I really tend towards the warmth, the terracotta, the reds, and so this blue just stands out like a beacon. But I find myself wearing a lot of monochromatic outfits, as I said, and rarely combining more than 2 colors in an outfit, and I would say never more than 3 colors in an outfit, and I'm super happy with that. Getting dressed is much easier than it used to be. Still, I feel chic and comfortable in what I'm wearing essentially all of the time, which didn't used to be the case. I used to often go out on a limb and then not quite regret it, but also not feel chic and comfortable, you know? Overall, I would say that getting dressed in the morning is taking up less brain space, which is wonderful, but also bringing me more pleasure and confidence since I embraced aesthetic minimalism as a guideline. I also find, and this I think should come as no surprise, that embracing this guideline is really helping me with my goal of buying less clothing in the year of 2023. I'm no longer tempted by anything that falls outside my general aesthetic guidelines. So there's just a huge percentage of clothing that isn't hard to resist buying at all. It's just not on the table. It's like not up for consideration. There is a lot of really beautiful clothing on the market that's aesthetically minimal. But what I found is that something that I'm tempted to buy that's aesthetically minimal is more likely to be aesthetically similar to something that I already own. Like I might come across a stunning sweater brand that I've never heard about and be tempted by a beautiful black V-neck sweater, but I already have a black V-neck sweater. I might get caught by an Instagram ad for the perfect white tee, but I already have a white tee that I like well enough. And it's just way easier to resist those things, even though they are kind of promising to be optimal versions of a thing I already have, because it's a version of a thing I already have. It's so much easier to resist than it was when I was being caught by Instagram ads for like printed blouses and dresses and elaborately designed things that always looked really exciting and different compared to the clothing that I already owned. So over time, I'm finding, once again, that aesthetic minimalism, even though it's not the same thing, has a way of gently fostering lifestyle minimalism. I had started to think about this at the end of that initial experimental month, and it has definitely continued to feel true to me and revealed itself to be even more true to me over time. So that's everything. That's what's going on right now. But this experiment is constantly evolving. I'm not trying to push myself into anything specific, and I have no idea what will happen next. I'm especially curious to find out how my handful of formerly precious printed sundresses will fare when the weather changes and I unpack them from storage. Will I want to wear them? Will I hate them? It's a little bit hard to tell. I think I won't know until it happens. So I'll be following my future career closely, and I will definitely report back to you later in the year. In today's video, I'm inviting you along as I flip my wardrobe from fall winter clothes to spring summer clothes. Right off the bat, I have to confess that I lifted this idea directly from Emma Hill, whose wardrobe changeover videos have inspired me. It is totally due to her influence that I even thought of filming this video, and I'll link her channel down below. I encourage you to check it out. My wardrobe changeover is pretty dynamic this season due to some extenuating circumstances that I'll explain in a minute. I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out, as you'll see, but it ended up being really satisfying for me, and I hope that you enjoy it too. If you do enjoy it and you happen to be new here, or you've been watching for a while and you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you'll decide to subscribe. And let's now get right into the meat of this video. So quickly here at the beginning, there are 5 extenuating circumstances, 5 relatively unique features of this project, this season, this year for me. Feature number 1, the closet wasn't just full of winter clothes, it was also kind of messy and disorganized. So I took this opportunity to organize in addition to switching out the seasons. I actually really like reorganizing in my closet from time to time. I like moving things around to refresh my experience of interacting with my clothes. And I knew going into it that there might be some clothes that didn't get switched out, but that did get moved around to create an even more increased sense of newness. Feature number 2, I have way fewer summer clothes than winter clothes. I was a little worried going into it that this particular wardrobe changeover might whittle my closet down to nothing. Feature number 3, the timing. It's not winter anymore right now, but it's still a little bit chilly on some days. And even at the height of summer, I need some garments to warm me in air-conditioned spaces. So I planned to judiciously retain a few cold weather garments, transitional weather garments, and maybe even keep a few really warm things like winter things as stragglers that will end up going into storage a month or 2 later than everything else. Feature number 4 of this wardrobe changeover. Now we're getting to the big ones. My style has changed. I think I can now say that with confidence. My style has changed. If you've been following my experimental minimal wardrobe series, then you'll know that I've pretty much converted to just a little bit more streamlined of an aesthetic. In particular, I'm less into prints now, especially really multicolored prints. I like some prints, but they tend to be like more minimal prints, like a little bit graphic, a little bit simpler. And going into this changeover, I was aware that a lot of the clothes I put away at the end of last summer are emblematic of like the most maximal that my style has ever gotten. They're just louder. My summer clothes are louder. I had no idea what it would feel like opening up that box of sundresses and getting back into them. Lately, I've been feeling, as the seasons have changed, a little bit more amenable to the idea of color, a little bit more willing to wear some louder prints, and kind of a little bit curious about what was in that box, but still not sure that I feel enthusiastic about the height of my former level of maximalism. All right, and feature number 5 of this wardrobe changeover. In addition to my style, my body has changed pretty dramatically recently. And in my case, the change to my body has come about because I'm pregnant. But bodies change for all sorts of reasons. Illness, injury, aging, seasonal weight fluctuation, or just general weight fluctuation. It's normal over the course of your life to go through periods of time where some of your clothes don't fit. So the question during a time like this, for anyone going through a time like this for any reason, the question becomes, what do you do with the clothes that don't fit? There's some guesswork involved because we can't always accurately predict whether or not they will someday fit again. And if you're someone who has carefully collected a wardrobe of nice things, some of them investment pieces, and you've tried, as I have tried, to buy things that you hope will last forever and that you hope you will wear forever, you can't really be flippant about that. For example, in my case, I have a handful of pairs of tailored high-waisted trousers, and for years they fit beautifully on my waist. Of course, I can't wear them now, but I'm also aware that I might never be able to wear them again. If it turns out that those pants don't fit the new normal for me, then I'll sell them, and that'll be fine. But it might be a year or more before I can accurately gauge that. And in the meantime, I don't want them hanging in my closet. It's really important to me. It's become really important to me that when I look into my closet, everything that's there is something that works for me now, in season, in style, and in size. So that means that clothes that don't fit are all going into temporary storage. Some of them are already in temporary storage. I've been steadily moving them into storage as they stop fitting. And I knew going into this wardrobe changeover that it would likely send another round of too small garments into storage too. So what with all of these factors, fewer summer clothes than winter clothes, a more minimalist aesthetic, a different body, and a chance to reorganize, I went into this changeover expecting a really different closet, more than anything, a much, much smaller closet as a result. And I was very curious to see how it would turn out. And honestly, I went into it with a little bit of trepidation too. So I started by cleaning up a little bit of the mess just to make a little bit more space for myself. And then I brought out these weatherproof Tupperwares that I use for clothes storage. These are from the Container Store, and I absolutely love them. Of course, I will link them down below. Where I lived in LA, there were clothes moths, like the moths that eat holes in your clothes, and eradicating them from all of our belongings after we moved, it has been a huge ongoing project that has required a shocking level of vigilance. It's only been a year, so there is a chance that some eggs have survived in spite of all that I have done. They could still hatch, especially as the weather warms up, and I'm always super conscious of that danger with the way that I store my clothes. I don't want clothes moths to take over this video in addition to the way that they've taken over my life, so I'm not going to talk more about that, but I will pin a lengthy and detailed comment all about moth eradication for those of you looking for advice on that, because I have pretty much become an expert. Anyway, it's worth it to me to invest in these amazing, super locking, super sealing storage Tupperwares, and I have 2 fresh big ones to fill with winter clothes. I also have these giant 10-gallon Ziploc bags for extra protection on top of that. I'll link those below as well. I started by going through these racks in the exterior of my closet, these racks on which I've been hanging all of my tops, and pulling out all of my heavy-duty winter sweaters and long-sleeved shirts. So this is the really warm clothing, stuff that will be uncomfortably warm to wear even on a little bit of a chilly spring day, or just stuff that has so much of a winter vibe to it, like a chunky winter vibe, that it would feel weird aesthetically to be wearing it in spring. Some of my sweaters will need to be washed one last time before I pack them away. That's actually one of the important steps when it comes to moth prevention. Most of what was hanging there was already clean, but my big chunky wool sweaters I wear over and over and over again without needing to wash them. Many of them I just wash once a season. So some of those I put aside for their final wash and dry before I pack them up. Everything else was clean and ready to pack up. Fabrics that are much less likely to be harboring moth eggs, especially at this point in my eradication process. Fabrics like cottons or anything synthetic, although I don't have that much that's synthetic. Those things at this point, I feel safe storing them loose in the Tupperwares. So a lot of things I was just folding up and stacking in the Tupperwares. But I'm still paranoid enough that anything that's wool, anything that's like a really juicy snack for a moth, got folded and packed into its own plastic bag to keep it separate from everything else inside the Tupperwares. Some categories, things like sweatshirts, they're things that I will wear through winter and summer, and that will be really great light layers in summer. So when it came to sweatshirts, for example, I just picked my favorite 2 or 3 and left them hanging in the closet, and I packed all the rest of them away. Then I went into my much smaller back closet, which is where I've been storing my dresses and my pants. I brought out all of my winter dresses and a few pairs of pants that don't fit anymore right now. All of those went straight into the Tupperwares. That was pretty straightforward. And then I stood back and I took another pass at the tops. I just felt like I still had way too many long-sleeved tops hanging there. It gets really hot where I live right now, and even though it's kind of just starting to be spring currently, I know that summer is right around the corner, and I just felt like I didn't need so many transitional pieces. I didn't need all of the ones I had decided to skip over on the first pass. I also wanted to consolidate all of the tops onto the top rack, and once I had whittled them down again with that second pass, I was able to do that. I put all of the tops up onto the top rack, and then I brought out all of my pants, which have been hanging hanging in the dress closet for a while now. I put my pants back there when I realized I wanted all of my knitwear to have its own rack. That was the bottom rack of the open concept closet. But now that I'm packing all of my knitwear away, I can bring the pants back out. I also thought that this would be a good move because even though I have fewer items of spring and summer clothing than I do fall and winter clothing, I have more dresses for the spring and the summer. So it makes sense everywhere. No problem fitting the pants on the rack out here and more breathing room for the dresses that are left hanging in the closet. But as it turned out, I had so few pants that they only filled half of the bottom rack. And at the same time, I realized once I had brought out the pants and kind of assessed the situation that it felt a little bit funny to have my transitional knitwear and long-sleeved things mixed in with like my t-shirts and my really lightweight summer blouses on the top rack. So I brought the transitional knitwear back down to share the bottom rack with the pants, and everything fit perfectly that way. It also made room, plenty of room, for 4 or 5 t-shirts that I had been storing in a little storage bin on the back of the closet door to be brought out and hung up on hangers, kind of put with the rest of my tops. That's a much better system for me, especially going into the season when I'm going to be wearing those t-shirts more. The storage system that's on the back of my closet door, by the way, is also from the Container Store. I'll link that down below as well. So then it was time, the moment of truth, time to bring out the bona fide summer clothes that have been in storage for months. During a recent reorganization, I had already weeded out the summer clothes that were in storage that I knew for sure wouldn't fit me this summer. These are the ones that remained. Most of them are things that were banished for maximalism 6 months ago during my first pass, my first try at a minimal wardrobe. And then they never came back, maybe partly because they're so maximalist, but mostly because they weren't seasonal. So I was really curious to see how I would feel about them now. And it was super interesting. First of all, I realized I had to try everything on to get a feel for it. And here's what happened. Some of it fit well and had a bit more print than I've been wearing lately, but still felt really great and felt like something that I might wear this summer. And a little bit of an infusion of print felt welcome, actually, like felt like it would be fresh for me. Some of it fit, but just felt too maximalist for my current vibe, too loud, too busy, and some things were just too tight. My patchwork Doen blouse, for example, the iconic beloved patchwork blouse, it doesn't fit across my currently prodigious bosom. The buttons would close, but then they were like strained and gapping. I think I'd like to wear it again, but I'm going to have to wait and see if it fits next summer. And honestly, I give it a 50-50 chance. Stay tuned. And the distinctions are so interesting to me, the fineness of some of the distinctions. I ended up being really excited to take out my Dries Van Noten house dress. It fits perfectly and it feels really chic to me right now. It's like I cannot wait to wear it. But the Bathsheba house dress that I have, which is very similar in design, it feels like too much. It fit when I put it on. It was definitely cute, but I feel like it was too cute, like cutesy. There was something about the combination of the femininity of the coloring, the cheekiness of the Western detailing, also the fact that it's significantly shorter than the Dries Van Noten house dress. It's like a knee-length dress. I felt like it made kind of a doll out of me, and I'm just not about that life right now. I was aware when I had it on that it objectively looked good, but I also became aware the more I thought about it that even if I hung it in my summer wardrobe, I wasn't going to wear it. So of the things that were in that box, about half of them made it into the wardrobe. The other half went back in storage. They lived to be reassessed another day. Next, I cleaned up around the edges a bit, so to speak, made some decisions about what to put on the shelves. My shoes, I didn't have to change over. I hadn't put my sandals away. I don't have enough shoes that I need to do that. So all of my shoes are just out all of the time. But I did a little bit of tidying, a little bit of cleaning. It kind of brought some of my summer shoes to the forefront. And then I had my results. And here's what they are. My summer wardrobe is smaller than my winter one, and even smaller than it would ordinarily be because so many of my pairs of pants are in storage. But it's still not small. Like, I would not call it small. It is definitely not as small as I thought it would be. I'm surprised by how many viable clothes I have. Doing this gave me a realistic realistic sense of what my options actually are and made me way less freaky outy about the fact that nothing fits anymore, everything's in storage, what am I going to wear when it gets really hot, et cetera, all these feelings I'd been feeling because I didn't quite know what I had, I didn't quite know where everything was, and it was making me want to go out and buy more stuff. This project, the wardrobe changeover, it really helped quell the urge to buy more stuff going into summer. At the very least, I will wear all of what I have first and then make a very deeply informed decision about what I might need if it actually does turn out not to be enough. But my hope is that it will pretty much turn out to be enough. One of my favorite results, one of my favorite things is that since I brought the pants to the external rack, the closet is all dresses. It's much easier for me to see what I have dress-wise specifically. And I feel like that's going to encourage me to wear more dresses because I can just march into my closet and I know what I'm gonna wear. If I go in there looking, it's gonna be a dress. So that's it. After all that, a relatively straightforward and successful closet changeover. I've really fallen in love with this way of interacting with my wardrobe. Moving things around, bringing things in and out of storage. It makes me feel like my overall collection of clothes is something that morphs and evolves with me as I change. But it does that without me having to buy a whole bunch of new stuff every season. It's like the fundamental agent of change in my closet is me reorganizing my stuff and curating a new edit from my larger collection of belongings every 2 or 3 months. And then when something new does get added, as it does from time to time, that's just like a cherry on top. But it's not the only thing causing my wardrobe to feel fresh. And that has saved me a lot of money. It's helped me keep an overall more streamlined collection. And it has made it feel more merited for me to invest a little bit more in pieces that are a bit nicer, like my sweaters, which I wear every year. And I'm always excited to bring out of storage when the seasons change. Thank you so much for watching this video about my wardrobe changeover. Over the past couple of years, I've been on a slow journey towards minimalist fashion. Both aesthetic minimalism, i.e. the way that I dress, and lifestyle minimalism, meaning how many garments I own. It's not a harsh minimalism that I've been working towards, not a punishing, moralistic minimalism, but rather a gentle simplification that has made space in my life, calmed me down, and made it easier to shop less and spend less. There are other videos on my channel documenting this process, and I'll link the relevant videos and playlists down below. In this video, I'm going to share one crucial guideline for successful minimalist dressing that has developed in me over the course of this process that I adhere to almost without fail and that I have never discussed on camera. The more I think about it, the stranger it seems that I've never brought it up because it's pretty specific and it's also pretty big and pretty doable. So in this video, I'm going to first say what it is. Second, I'm going to explain how to set yourself up to do it easily. And third, I'm going to share how I'm doing this in my own wardrobe and in my own life. Subscribe if you like it, and let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. Okay, section 1, the tip, the hot tip for looking really put together, really pleasing that I have developed alongside my minimalist wardrobe. It's this: don't wear more than 2 colors at a time. Total. So this includes accessories, socks, shoes, bags, hair clips, literally anything that is on your person. Pick 2 colors and make sure that everything that's on you is in one of those 2 colors. It's simple, but it's also kind of radical. In my opinion, it makes a huge difference. In many cases, it can make a huge difference. The difference between a just okay outfit and a striking, strong, fashion-feeling outfit that really actually showcases your personal individual self, is streamlined to showcase your features and show off what makes you uniquely yourself. Now, it is both harder than you might think and easier than you might think. It's harder than you might think because of accessories. Like, what if your winter scarf is red? Then that's one of your two colors because nothing is exempt. For it to really work, for it to really be at full power, nothing is exempt. And I don't know, throwing on green shoes at the last minute after you've built a look around two colors that aren't green, not to be dramatic, but it disrupts the entire balance. Not to say that you can't ever build a good outfit that way. I mean, not to say that throwing on green shoes at the last minute is never a good idea. I'm sure sometimes it's the best idea. Just within the confines of this guideline, within the parameters of this method, essentially, nothing is exempt, not even your winter scarf. And if you happen to have a red winter scarf and you happen to live somewhere where it's cold enough right now that you need to wear it every day, then that can make this harder than you think because then red is one of your colors every day. But it's also easier than you might think because you don't have to stick to the same exact tone of each one of your two colors. So if one of your two colors is camel, like this sweater, then your outfit can include varying shades of mustard, khaki, dun, beige. There's a broad spectrum of this color, and any shade that's kind of in the same realm will work to keep your outfit cohesive, to keep your outfit, I guess, bichromatic. In my video, that classic video about wearing your clothes in a new way, there's a section about monochromatic dressing, and I discussed this concept at length there. So check that out for more detail if you haven't seen it. It's full of exciting graphs and charts. But the basic idea is that there are different ways to dress monochromatically. You can wear literally the same exact tone of the same exact color, like different garments that all look like they might have been dyed in the same vat of dye. Or you can wear different iterations of the same color for tone-on-tone dressing. And that same spectrum applies here. And because many of us are drawn towards the same color or colors over and over, it might be pretty easy for you to experiment with this for, I don't know, like a week straight, just using what's already in your closet and see how it goes. So as I love to do, I'm delivering content that doesn't necessarily need to be shopping related. It's something that you could just act on now. But I do want to take it further and discuss how this principle can actually actively inform your decision-making process when you're trying to curate a cohesive wardrobe of fewer, nicer things. Because I have found that it's not just useful when I'm getting dressed in the morning. In fact, it is the most useful when I'm trying to decide what to buy and what not to buy. So let's move on to section 2, which is how to basically shop towards this principle. First, know your colors. Choose your colors, or discern what your colors maybe already are. I suggest choosing 2 main colors, like the 2 dominant colors in your wardrobe, and then 1 or 2 accent or occasional colors, for a total of 4, maybe 5. But I think having the 2 main ones, the 2 dominant colors, is the most important principle, actually. Now, I suggest not stressing out, not worrying too much about what your perfect colors might be, but just picking a few based on what you know that you love, what you know that you love to wear. What brings you joy? What colors do you find yourself reaching for when you know that you want to look and feel your best on a given day? This might be black. For me, black is one of them. It doesn't have to be a big statement, you know? And if your wardrobe is already dominated by a color or two, don't overthink it. You already know what it is. You've already got it. So once you've figured out what you think they are, or you think that they might be, your 2 dominant colors, and then your, I would say 1, 2, or 3 accent colors, the second thing that you have to do is to get comfortable with automatically not buying things if they don't come in any of your colors. Simplification is a lot about what's not there. And as I've gone down this path, I've been amazed at how frequently I omit to acquire something, how often I don't buy a thing, a truly wonderful thing, just because it's not one of my colors. If you're used to buying a lot of wonderful things, then this might take some getting used to. For some of you, it might be the hardest part because it's learning to say no, even in the face of that feeling of attraction or that feeling of desire, based on what in the moment of desire might feel like a kind of arbitrary principle. optional, but it's crucial. You're basically trying to build a wardrobe of building blocks, a wardrobe of building blocks of color. And with such a stringent guideline, the goal of only wearing 2 colors at a time, the more you have of each of your main colors, the more flexibility you'll have when you're getting dressed. Everything will be more wearable that way. It'll be easier to mix and match. A garment in an outlying color kind of causes the system to collapse, or at the very least, you have to work a lot harder to build an outfit around it, so it gets less wear, which means that in practical terms, it's less valuable to you. Now, a quick word about print or garments that include more than one color in some way, like color blocking. My suggestion is to pick prints, if you use them, that only utilize 2 colors and they're 2 of your colors, or prints that are totally dominated by one of your colors. So if your main colors are black and blue, a black and blue print, like a black and blue stripe, for example, will be really easy to incorporate. Or a very blue dominant print, even if it has a bunch of other colors mixed in, if it's very blue dominant, that could also work. And you would just consider it to be a blue garment. So a final piece of advice, the third piece of advice about curating your wardrobe, has to do with accessories. Accessories are unique to a wardrobe in that they're worn over and over again. So shoes, coats, bags, the aforementioned winter scarf. These are things that you're always using to complete your outfit when you go out. We're often wearing the same one over and over again. So you might change your base clothing, but then you're wearing your same winter boots over and over again, day after day. So they're kind of the things that lock you in, and they're impactful. Really impactful. We tend to think of them last, but in terms of impact and frequency of wear, they should really be given the consideration of a thing that comes first. So my advice is to get accessories in one of your 2 dominant wardrobe colors instead of your accent colors, and to make them match with each other seasonally. The winter boots that you wear the most often, make sure that they are the same dominant wardrobe color as the bag that you carry the most often in the winter. Same with your summer shoes, your sandals, and your most carried summer bag, and your scarf, hat, gloves, and coat for the winter. If the accessories that you find yourself putting on all at once, most days in a given season, are all of the same color, then you'll have more room to play with the clothes that you wear closer to your body day after day. Okay, section 3. Let's move on, because I think that these principles will make even more sense with the examples from my own wardrobe. So my main colors are black and cream or white. Black is pretty straightforward, but cream/white. White has a range. Quite a wide range, actually. I feel like it can be stretched even to include dark cream, many shades of what the fashion industry calls oatmeal, and even a light heather gray. The relatively beefy white section of my wardrobe is pretty dynamic, pretty multicolored. It's like every shade of white and cream. It has the broad spectrum of tone-on-tone dressing that I talked about in that video about monochromatic outfits. In terms of non-neutral accent colors, I have camel/mustard, I guess, again, like this sweater, and terracotta/red. So when you look at my closet, you see big building blocks of cream and white, big building blocks of black, and then smaller building blocks of mustard and terracotta, basically with some dark neutrals that aren't black mixed in. So if I'm tempted when I'm shopping by a colorful pair of shoes or a colorful bag, if it's a shade of one of my accent colors, I know that I can make it work, though perhaps not as frequently as I could make a white bag or a black bag work. But if it's a colorful accessory that's totally outside of my palette, like a pair of Kelly green shoes, no matter how great it is, I know that styling it will be an effort, like a huge effort in some cases. It'll require, if I'm sticking to this principle, the whole rest of my outfit to be monochromatic. That's not impossible to do, especially with black or white. I could totally do the classic all black with a statement item outfit and make those green shoes work. And if I really, 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 really love the shoes, that wouldn't stop me. Because again, I'm not suggesting total stringency. There are always exceptions to the rule. But it does mean, and this is what I think about when I'm in that moment of trying to decide if I'm going to buy something or not. It does mean that I will end up wearing that pair of green shoes less frequently. So it's simply not as good of an investment. And that information, which is solidly true is often the push that I need, the last piece of evidence that I need to talk myself out of buying a temptingly quirky garment or accessory. Case in point, the blue Baba sweater. It's actually a blue version of a sweater very much like this one. That blue sweater that I bought last year. I knew what I was doing when I bought it. I knew that it would be an outlier in my wardrobe, a statement piece for me, an accent piece, and that it would be basically more difficult to style than anything else. I knew that it would strike a dissonant note in my wardrobe, and in that way that it would be kind of a power color. And because I bought it with full knowledge of all of those things, I don't think that it was a totally unwise decision. At least it wasn't an uninformed decision, and I have enjoyed wearing it. But the truth is, now, over a year later, the bloom is kind of off the rose, and if I could exchange that blue sweater for the same sweater in white or cream, I would do it in a second, because no matter how you slice it, it's a challenging piece for me. And I simply place a much higher value on cohesiveness, polish, cost per use, sophistication, and effortlessness than I do on the kind of wham bam kapow flashy splashiness of a statement piece, even one as genuinely beautiful as that blue sweater. I still love the sweater, but it was a real learning experience for me, a real cautionary tale. So that's kind of a negative example from my life. A couple of positive examples of shopping decisions that I've made over the past year or two that I made because of this principle are these. 2 summers ago, I bought some summer sandals and a black summer bag, and I was tempted by deviant colors for both of them and then ended up going with my dominant color. So for the bag, it's this woven leather. I was tempted by the brown or tan because it looked more summery to me and you could really see the weave better in the brown. I almost feel like the brown version of the bag was objectively more beautiful, and so I was really tempted by that. And the sandals came in black and white. And white is also one of my dominant wardrobe colors, so I was really tempted by the white pair because they're so beautiful. I went around and around, and I eventually settled on the black sandals and the black bag. Even though I really loved the white sandals, and they would have worked with my closet, even though I felt that the brown bag was maybe objectively a little bit more handsome than the black one, I got the black sandals and the black bag so that they would match and go with all of the other black that's in my wardrobe. And every single summer day since then, I have thanked my past self for that decision because I throw on those sandals and that bag so gladly, so easily, so effortlessly every time. And they always work with each other and they always work with what I'm wearing as long as black is one of the 2 colors. The white sandals would have been much harder. They would have kind of stuck in my craw. And the brown bag, I think, might have gone uncarried almost all of the time. I think it might have ended up being a dud of a purchase because even though I liked the brown one better in theory, in isolation, it just wouldn't have worked with what I have and wear. A more recent example, my winter parka. After a long search, I finally decided on a parka, and it only came in black, blue, and green. And blue and green are just non-options for me, so black was really the only choice. And I felt it was boring. I was like, everyone has a black parka, everyone has a black coat. I wish it came in taupe. I would have gotten the taupe one. But the same exact thing as happened with the sandals and bag has happened with the parka. When I put it on with all of my other clothes and accessories, with my shoes, my bag, and my clothes, I feel great. I feel so much more put together because of the choice to get it in black on a daily basis when I'm getting dressed. And this is really the takeaway. When making a purchase decision for your wardrobe, thinking about the big picture, thinking about the daily experience of composing an outfit, and not just about the single item that's right in front of you in your shopping cart right now. Thinking about what you already have and what you already wear, and being practical, being aesthetically practical. Alternate title for the video, bichromatic dressing for the aesthetically practical. So doing that, being aesthetically practical, rather than forgetting and making your purchase decision in a vacuum, not relating it to your existing wardrobe. I think that making those decisions in a vacuum is often what leads us to buy fantasy pieces or to buy pieces of clothing or accessories for the fantasy self. And I think that this takeaway where we've gotten here is is the real heart of the video and is relevant advice to you, even if the idea of wearing only 2 colors in a given outfit is crazy to you. I'm totally aware that that piece of advice or that guideline is not for everyone. I think if you're interested in minimalist styling and you're looking for guidance there, then it is a phenomenal overarching styling guideline. And if that's your situation, I really encourage you to try it. But you may not be interested in minimalist styling, or you may just not be interested in taking it to this extreme. Hopefully, though, the ideas of this video will be relevant either way, because the core of the philosophy is about thoughtfulness, being deliberate with your purchases, looking at the big picture of your style, and letting go of the myopic fantasies that can sometimes lead us to buy garments and accessories that don't work with our other clothes and that actually ultimately don't feel good to wear. No matter how many colors you wear on any given day, those things still matter. This is my husband's thrifted Brooks Brothers blazer. He bought it at the Goodwill on Southeast Grand in Portland, Oregon in 2009, 14 years ago. It's 100% worsted wool with a very small brown and beige check, and I'm guessing it was made in the 90s. It was used when he bought it, and he's put a lot of miles on it himself. Dozens, if not hundreds of tango events and random occasions. He wrote an entire play in it because he used to dress formally to get himself in the writing mood when he was writing The Banging of the Shrew. It's starting to fray. Who are we kidding? It's frayed. It's fraying. But I think it still has a certain je ne sais quoi. And a few weeks ago, I realized that it was perfect for my purposes. Here's the thing. The oversized blazer haunts my dreams. My Instagram scrolls and my Pinterest boards are packed with chic people swimming in oversized blazers and looking amazing. Getting coffee in their blazers, going to work in these massive blazers, even parenting while rattling around loose inside of gigantic blazers and managing to look 100 times better than I ever do because of it. Like search parties are being sent into the blazers to find them. And when they're found, the search parties realize that they've been in there eating and leaving no crumbs. When I see blazers like this for sale on Anina Bing, the Frankie shop, you know, I get tingles in my scalp and butterflies in my stomach. The fantasy hovers just out of reach, sparkling and begging to become a reality. And it's been like this for years, my friends. However, whenever I get the chance to try one on in person, like at the Anina Bing store, which I have done, I can't take myself seriously. I look at my head sitting like a pumpkin on the shelf between those 2 big shoulder pads, and I think the people will laugh at me. To me, in the mirror, it looks contrived, absurd, and only serves to shine a light on the fact that I am not as pretty or chic or effortlessly elegant, or I want to say like not as wealthy, not as upper class, as well off. I'm not as fashion ballsy as the blazer wearing people on my Instagram feed. Wherever those fashion chops are coming from for them, whenever I've put one of these blazers on, I have felt immediately my lack of those chops. And so I've never bought one because blazers are expensive and they're too expensive for me to buy one just in the hopes that I'll get used to the way that I look in it, or somehow in the course of wearing it, grow those chops. So the ultimate question, the question of whether it is possible for me to grow into an oversized blazer, so to speak, has gone unanswered. And then one evening last month, I was going through our coat closet and I impulsively tried Joe's blazer on my body. And then I realized that I already had here in my house exactly what I needed to perform the experiment. So I wore my husband's blazer for a week to everything in my life, to every event, even when it seemed like it would be out of place and make me feel uncomfortable. And in this video, I'm going to show you all of the outfits and tell you what happened. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, day 1 of the blazer experiment. I was working from home this day, and I also had, my toddler had a doctor's appointment. So it was like kind of trial by fire right out of the gate, because going to the pediatrician, I mean, that's like the kind of thing that the chic minimalist blogger mom would totally do in a blazer, and that I feel like that's the last place that I would have ever chosen to wear a blazer. But I did it, y'all, and I started very low-key, easy entry point with the rest of my outfit. The aforementioned quince tank tops, which I am just wearing on repeat. I put on some barrel leg jeans. This is the kind of thing that I wear to work from home all the time. It's pretty low formality. It felt like I wouldn't run the risk of having the formality levels add up too quickly by wearing the blazer. I also felt good in this because it was kind of fitted. It felt like that would balance out the oversized nature of the blazer and the large shoulder pads, which were intimidating me. With this outfit, I would normally wear chunky loafers to leave the house, so that's what I chose, my Freda Salvador loafers. That was the part of my outfit that was coming the closest to making it all too much with the blazer. Adding the blazer to this actually felt fine. It kind of felt like versatile outerwear, like a cardigan if it gets cold in the house, or like a light jacket if it's a little bit chilly when you step outside. It felt like it had that exact use value. And the loafers ended up supporting the blazer without feeling like too much. I actually felt like the loafers helped to telegraph it's a fashion choice instead of I'm wearing my husband's blazer because I got cold. And then this slouchy taupe woven leather tote helped keep the whole thing more casual so that it felt more fashion than formal. So how did it feel to wear it to the pediatrician? Actually fine. I had the thought on this day that one of the interesting things about clothes is that once you have them on, when you're out doing the thing, especially if it's a kind of an engaging thing, dealing with a toddler at a checkup, you know, you can kind of forget about what you're wearing and just do what you're doing, and in that way inhabit the clothes, right? Live in them. So even if you make what feels like a high stakes choice at the beginning of the day, if you're living in it, it just kind of melts onto you. At least with aspirational clothing, I feel like that's a good goal. Like it's a good thing to remind oneself of, to kind of give oneself a little confidence, a little bravery. Put it on at home, leave the house, and then just live. So I say this, but I also did take the blazer off a lot at the doctor's office because it was kind of hot in there and I was holding a sobbing toddler. So it might have been that like it felt fine getting in and out of the car and like walking in, but then actually in there face to face with the actual pediatrician, the blazer was a little bit like thrown over the back of a chair. I did feel triumphant after that first day because I at least did it. Day 2, yet another, and I have to say here that these days weren't necessarily in exactly consecutive order. There were a few missed days in between. One, because it was like way too hot. I kind of picked the last possible week in the year that I could have done this experiment. My toddler was sick for a little bit, so there was like a day or two in there where we totally didn't leave the house, didn't really go anywhere. So I tried to keep the week as close together as possible, but it wasn't totally consecutive. Full disclosure. The second day of the experiment also felt, and I didn't mean it this way, but I had two like what felt to me real challenges right out of the gate, and this was the second one. Music class with my kid. So like a group family music class where families come, like the parents come and bring their kids, and sometimes the whole family comes, sometimes it's just one. It's something that I just do by myself with him. So I take him and we go to this music class where we're sitting around with all of these families and I had to wear the blazer. And it was a little bit chilly on that day, so it was totally weather appropriate, but it felt to me when I realized that I was going to have to wear it so not style appropriate. I felt like I was going to be really overdressed. So once again, I went with the strategy of dressing down on the inside. I wore it with the white tank and slouchy oversized jeans. And oh my gosh, this felt great. This felt great. I was worried that it would feel too formal. And you know, some people might have thought so when I was in music class, but I didn't mind when I was there because I felt fine. I felt natural in it. Only on day 2. So maybe it was the just wear it and live your life principle at play. Maybe it was the fact that I once again had an extremely casual outfit on underneath it. Maybe I just have more important things to worry about, especially when I'm out in the world with my kid, than what people think of my outfit. I mean, that could be part of it. But whatever it was, I felt good about feeling like I looked kind of cool in music class. The fact that the blazer is so beat up and like fraying also kind of helped in this situation because it's an event to which most people sort of dress down. So it didn't feel necessarily too polished. And I think that that might have also been a factor. I could not believe how easy it was actually to wear this outfit in that setting and for the rest of that day. So that afternoon, I had kind of a little event to go to at the house of a friend. It was sort of like a party, a gathering for a friend to show some of her handmade wares. sneakers. I needed to dress up a little bit, so I couldn't use my strategy of wearing like jeans and a t-shirt underneath the blazer to make it okay. This felt like another hurdle. To this event, I wore the black cotton poplin maxi skirt, and I wasn't sure how the blazer, which is quite long on me, was going to look over the skirt. Even as I was leaving the house, I wasn't sure about it, but I really wanted to wear that skirt to this event. So to kind of pull myself back from it feeling like too much, I wore like a fitted, ribbed black t-shirt on top. Lots of compliments, I'll say, lots of compliments. I never got totally sure about the length of the blazer over the maxi skirt. I never felt really like as good as I ever do there at that event, but I wore the blazer the whole time. It was very well received. I didn't feel awkward, I must say. I just probably wouldn't pair them again, like the massively oversized blazer with the maxi skirt. This was definitely the most formal so far, and I think that that's telling. This is a little bit of preview of takeaways to come, right? The more formal that the event got, that my outfit got, the less balanced I felt like everything was with this blazer as like a necessary final layer. Okay, day 3. Once again, out in the wild parenting. I took my child to a physical therapy appointment. This is another situation in which I would ordinarily do everything possible to avoid feeling overdressed. It doesn't make sense to go overdressed into this situation, and so I felt self-conscious. I wore another one of those black ribbed tees. It's not the same one that I wore the day before to the garden party. That is also a Quince organic cotton ribbed thing that comes in a 3-pack. So I had like another clean one. So I wore that black cotton ribbed tee. I wore some barrel leg jeans. My lug-soled Chelsea boots. It was like a little bit chilly, still really low key. That was what made it work. The blazer felt like my jacket in this situation. It just felt like my outerwear. I felt well dressed, but I didn't feel overdressed entering that space. And it also must be said that I took the blazer off for most of the time that I was in there. I got a sense of what it was like to have it with me as a layer in yet another setting, and it, again, didn't bother me as much as I thought that it would. I was really getting used to it by this point. Day 4, a work day at home. I also had an errand to run. I once again dressed down, maybe the most of all so far, a white cropped t-shirt, really slouchy, oversized belted jeans, and white sneakers. So it was becoming clear that this like dressing down was kind of my crutch. For this experiment, it was the thing that made it okay for me to wear the blazer. And, you know, a lot of the images of people that I see wearing oversized blazers, they're wearing casual clothes underneath, even athleisure, you know, like leggings and a crop tank and an oversized blazer, which I didn't try that. I think that would feel a little too contrived even for me. Although as I'm learning in my life lately, you kind of don't know until you try it. I don't want to say that because I don't know until I try it. The images that I had kind of fetishized were starting to make sense as I took myself through the week. However, on this day, I also wore bravely my pink Gucci sunglasses, which really upped the quirk factor for the outfit. I got these sunglasses deeply discounted at Nordstrom Rack years ago. I've loved them, and then there have been times when I haven't wanted to wear them because they're so quirky. So when I'm really deep in my like moody minimalism, it's a no. As I move towards wanting a little bit more color, just these sunglasses are a great way to add that. It's like the only thing that I need when I'm feeling spicy. I felt like I was chickening out with a base outfit on this day, but then the fact that I put on the sunglasses told me that I was actually feeling kind of bold. Frankly, my discomfort with the blazer had essentially fully worn off by this point. I just it felt normal to me. I can't believe what a short time it took for that to happen. Literally cannot believe it. And the fact that I pulled out those pink Gucci sunglasses is what told the tale. Okay, day 5. This is so interesting. This was the last official day of the experiment. My husband and kid and I went out to dinner with a very good friend. I think I was the most dressed up on this occasion than I had been so far, and that's why it's so interesting. I was kind of going out with a bang. A sleeveless black blouse with a little bit of ruffling on it, these amazing flowy silk pants, which really made the outfit feel more polished, but still, you know, soft and flowy enough to be very wearable for me. Some jewelry, some heels. Honestly, the styling of the blazer, it didn't not work, but it felt conspicuously less nice than the rest of what I was wearing. Partly because it's fraying in the way that it is, but also because of like the sturdiness of the fabric, the menswear quality of the fabric, almost the workwear quality of the fabric. It's like if it had been something fine, like a relaxed linen blazer or something, then it would have worked better with this outfit. So I'm not sure that my issue with it was totally about the fact that it's an oversized blazer with big shoulder pads, or just the style of this blazer in particular. It didn't sing as much as it had on other days. So I started to see how a nicer and less utilitarian blazer could fit into my life. I was like, I could kind of go for a blazer right now to wear to this dinner, but just not this one. Like a slightly different oversized blazer would be good, and I'd be into that. And one like that then actually did enter my life. A really lovely, soft, oversized linen blazer has entered my life lately, as you might have seen in a recent styling video. So this whole project really opened the door to that. Like by the end of this, by the time I was dressing nicely to go out to dinner, I was like, give me that blazer. Friends, I did it. In less than a week of days, 5 days of experimenting, although spread out over slightly more than a calendar week, I grew the chops. It was so much easier than I expected. For years, I have failed to begin the experiment, to try it. And then once I actually did the experiment, it was not quite as easy as flipping a switch, as they say, but I would say it was nearly that easy. And for free, because I found it in my house. This particular blazer is going out of season right now as we enter summer. It's just a little bit too warm, but it will be back in my life in the fall. And Joe is not getting it back, I fear. Joe will need to go blazer shopping, I fear. The main thing I learned about the oversized blazer specifically, let us get into the nitty-gritty for a moment, is that it's an interesting hybrid of like outerwear and cardigan, or the role that a cardigan would play. But in that role, it's much more tailored than anything else that you might ever wear. So it's much more formal. It's the most formal option of anything that might be in the role of a cardigan. So the easiest way to balance it out and make it feel natural is to dress down underneath it. That's how you make it effortless. That's how I ended up making it effortless almost every day that I wore it, and nothing could be easier. It's a solid gold outfit formula, a really casual, more fitted perhaps outfit, like relatively fitted jeans and a tight t-shirt or tank top, and then the oversized blazer on top. Also wearing something fitted underneath, it makes it a little bit sexier and a little bit less like Forever 31. Not that those outfits weren't all fierce, not that I wouldn't wear all of them, but you know, sometimes we want to keep a little something in play. So fitted and casual underneath, then the oversized blazer on top. In my experience, right, my week of experience, perfect every time. The converse is also true. If you constantly feel slightly underdressed, for example, for your workplace, I know you're out there, you're just managing to hit the dress code, but you always just feel a little bit underdressed in your workplace, and you really don't want to update your whole wardrobe, the oversized blazer, it could be the one thing that you need, the perfect piece. A really great, sharp, oversized blazer will pull everything that you wear up to the next formality level. Everything you're already wearing, especially if you add like a pair of loafers or heels and a statement necklace or some statement earrings, it's over. And you can keep your slightly too casual work wardrobe and just wear all of that stuff on top of it and around it, and you'll be good to go. So I've really come to appreciate the versatility, the power of the oversized blazer, but it's not actually about blazers, right? This is about so much more than that. The experimentation and the takeaways go far beyond this garment. It's about change and self-confidence and being willing to try new things and get out of your ruts and making fantasy into reality with actions rather than purchases. If you haven't seen my video about the problem with the fantasy self trope, definitely click through and watch that. I feel like some fantasies are actually great. Fashion fantasies, fantasy of the self aspirations can sometimes be the way that you evolve yourself. And then some of those fantasies are really holding us back and hamstringing us because they aren't realistic. So that video is kind of about how to tell the difference between the two. And what it boils down to is we get tricked sometimes sometimes into thinking that you can make a fantasy self into the reality of yourself instantly just by making a purchase. But you make fantasy into reality through actions and not through purchases. So in this case, I took action, right? I wore the blazer and I was really lucky. I didn't even have to make a purchase to do that. Sometimes if I hadn't had one at all in the house, but I'd wanted to try it, I would have had to get a blazer somehow in order to do it. But the purchase of the blazer wouldn't have been the thing that brought the fantasy to life. No matter whether I borrowed it from Joe or bought it, it was the wearing of the blazer that was the only way to make fantasy into reality. So if you don't have a blazer, or if it's something else that you want to try, go thrift one. Like, that is the best. That's where this came from. That is the absolute best way, because especially if it doesn't cost a lot at the thrift shop, it doesn't even necessarily have to be the perfect one, and it doesn't have to be in perfect condition. It just has to be affordable enough and close enough to the dream for you to be able to wear it, to take action and actually see what its use value would be in your life and how it would integrate into your wardrobe, so that you can try on the fantasy basically and see if it suits you, instead of just trying to buy your way into a different life. In that video about the fantasy self, I was very anti just trying to buy your way into a different life. I feel like this experiment made me really pro the other path, which is taking action and seeing what happens. It really felt like a celebration of that type of project, right? That kind of life project. And I'm so glad that I decided to undertake it. Thanks to Joe for letting me borrow your blazer. And sorry, not sorry, keep your blazer. I guess we can share it. And thank you to all of you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed spending this time with me. And I really hope you're taking extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.